Hey guys, welcome back to Alienation. I hope you're all having an amazing day so far. If you're new here, hi, my name's Megan, and every single Sunday I sit down and talk about some form of weird and not so wonderful topic that really interests me. And I'm so excited for today's episode. But I just want to say, we've made it to 10 episodes. It's episode 10. Where did that time go? That went so quickly. So I just want to quickly say thank you so much to any of you that have watched every single episode so far or listened to every single episode so far. It means a lot to me, so thank you so much for supporting Alienation. It's been really fun. I'm loving it and I will carry on with it. But in today's episode, I am actually going to be talking about something that was just like a rabbit hole, or a black hole. I just got sucked in and it was very hard to stop researching. I chose this topic because it is something that obviously interests me, but at the same time, I needed today to be a smaller episode. It's been a very busy week and I'm really pushing it for time to get this episode done. But then I just got sucked in and there is just so much on this topic. I was pretty amazed, I'm not going to lie. But today we're actually going to be talking about haunted or cursed movie sets or film sets or films in general, and there's a lot of them. We're only going to be covering 5 today because, like I said, I don't have that much time, but there are so many. I didn't expect them to be so many of them. So here we go. Let's just get straight into it. I have chose some that you wouldn't think would be classed as haunted. There are a lot of the more well-known ones, but I've not chose that many well-known ones. So the first one I'd never actually heard of, and this is a film called A Tuck. I believe it means grandfather when translated into English, and funnily enough, this film doesn't exist. It's not actually a film yet. I say yet. I don't know if it's going to become a film at any point. Personally, I wouldn't be going down this route after all the crap that's happened before they even could film. But anyway, this film is still a script. However, the script was actually based on a novel, and it's the 1963 The Incomparable A Tuck. And this was actually written by the Canadian author Mordecai Richler. And it isn't a cliche horror film. I know a lot of the famous haunted movie sets are all horror based. However, this was never intended to be a horror film. I believe it's a comedy of some sort, but it does delve into a lot of topics like racism, materialism, popular culture. So yeah, it was turned into an American screenplay, but it never made it to film. So there is an urban legend that this film is cursed, or this whole screenplay is cursed. And the curse is basically that every single actor who shows an interest in being one of the characters in the film, especially the main character, the lead role, they are known to be killed off in real life, as in dead, gone, see you later. I wasn't going to put a disclaimer in this, but I've just realised there are some sensitive topics. So very quickly, a little disclaimer here. Warning, this episode does contain descriptions that some audience members may find disturbing, so viewer or listener discretion is advised. So some of you may have heard of John Belushi. He was a famous actor. He's quite well known, but he first read of this lead role in A Tuck in the beginning of 1982, and he was very interested in potentially becoming the main character in this film. However, only a few months later, on March the 5th, 1982, he was found dead. Weirdly enough, he was found in a room in the Chateau Marmont in Hollywood, and if you know about the Chateau Marmont, this is meant to be a haunted as fuck hotel. So this is one in California. If you don't know about it, that's a little rabbit hole in its own. Feel free to go down. I might cover in an episode one day, but yeah, he was found dead in his room. I believe it was a suspected overdose. However, that is just a little bit strange. Obviously, they probably didn't think anything of this related to this whole film. It was probably just an unfortunate accident that happened. However, a good few other actors ended up dying after showing interest in this film, which is so bizarre. It could just be a very strange coincidence. Sometimes coincidences are very questionable. So Sam Kinison, John Candy, and Chris Farley were all victims of this apparent film curse. But each of these people did express interest in becoming either one of the main characters or a lead role in this film, which again is so bizarre. That's 4 people to die already after expressing interest in starring in this film. So there's even rumours that some of these people were actually associates of the people who were interested in being the lead, and they'd read the script with them, so they were associated that way and they died, which is the likes of Michael O'Donoghue and even Phil Hartman, who was murdered by his own wife. Them 2 died as well, which is so bizarre. So this film is currently not filmed. It's just a script at the minute. It's just like a planned thing that just never could go ahead because people kept dying. And that is very scary, very sad. It could just be the most bizarre coincidence, but It is a very, very strange situation. So, is this film worth ever being filmed? Probably not. Should probably just leave that one as a book. I think it's good just as a book. Moving on. So next we have one of the more famous haunted movie sets. And when I say famous haunted movie sets, it is probably the most notoriously known one. Everyone knows that this is potentially Hollywood's most cursed film. And that is the 1982 Poltergeist movie. I have actually seen snippets of this film, but I haven't seen the whole film, even though I'm so interested in this stuff. I'm quite a baby. Horror films do scare the shit out of me. So like I said, this was named Hollywood's most cursed film set, or most cursed film to work on, after the cast were basically plagued with so many unfortunate events and incidents. There were so many tragedies after it had finished filming. But a lot of people do believe that there is a reason behind this whole cursed atmosphere or haunted setting, and that is potentially the use of real human remains in the film. So apparently it was far too expensive to get hold of props when it came to skeleton props. So they basically needed skeleton corpses in the film. If you've seen the film, you will know that there's a scene where the actress JoBeth Williams, I think she gets dragged into a swimming pool or she gets dragged into a pond or something. It's all like muddy by a bunch of skeletons. So obviously they needed skeletons for this scene. However, they were way too expensive to buy the fake ones, which were usually made out of like plastic or rubber. So instead, they chose to use real remains, real human skeletons, which is very questionable. It's quite disrespectful to use these remains. I do not know how they were sourced. I doubt they were donated. I mean, I don't know how they got these skeletons, but apparently that is potentially how the film became cursed. They were using real human remains, which isn't always a good thing to be doing. One of the worst things is the actors didn't know. So JoBeth Williams was in a muddy pool with corpses and she didn't know they were real. She just presumed that they were props and was only told afterwards. When you're doing stuff like that, you are kind of asking to be cursed. You are kind of asking for bad luck. Not a very good move. So that could have potentially been the start of the Poltergeist's film set bad luck, curse, dilemma shit going down. So sticking to the Poltergeist, in the film there is a scene where I think the young boy of the family, I think his name was Robbie, he gets attacked by a puppet. I really struggled to watch this scene because if you didn't watch the episode on Robert the Haunted Doll, I'm terrified of dolls. I don't like any form of replica like puppets or mannequins, anything like that scares me. So this scene just made me feel so uncomfortable. And funnily enough, I also have a phobia of clowns. I am absolutely terrified of a puppet of a clown. I don't like it. I'm sorry, it just makes me feel sick. But basically, he gets attacked by this clown puppet. It gets possessed and it basically strangles Robbie in this scene. And unfortunately, while they were filming this scene, things just went a completely bizarre route and a very strange thing did happen. So obviously it was a prop. It is inanimate to an extent, as in like it's mechanical, it can move. It's also an object that doesn't have life. It shouldn't be able to move on its own. But unfortunately, while they were filming, the puppets, it can basically, the strangulation thing that it can do was obviously programmed into it. It completely malfunctioned and actually started to choke the actor that was playing Robbie, as in like fully choking. There was no acting going down. He was panicking. So Steven Spielberg, it was his movie. He was the writer and producer of this film. We all know Steven Spielberg. He's a huge person in the film industry. He had to jump in and basically save the boy. He had to try and get this puppet thing off him and to stop trying to kill him. So it could just be a coincidence. It could just be an error, a malfunction. That's completely possible. It can happen. But when they are portraying something that's possessed and it actually technically becomes possessed, it is very, very scary. So moving along to after filming was done, unfortunately, the cast did lose a few of their members. There was a few deaths that did take place, and that is so sad to think. So if this was a cursed film and these people did pass away because of the film, that is very, very scary. So apparently 2 cast members from the first film, The Poltergeist, and another 2 from the sequels did actually end up passing away after the films had finished. So after the first film was released, so just The Poltergeist, 4 months after that, Dominique Dunne, I think it's Dunne or Dunn, I'm not too sure, I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing that, but she played the family's oldest daughter in the first film. Her character was called Dana. She unfortunately was murdered by her ex-boyfriend. She was only 22 at the time. So this was in 1982, and it was unfortunately the day before Halloween. John Thomas Sweeney was her ex-boyfriend, and he strangled her outside their home. This was in West Hollywood, which is so sad, but she did actually survive the initial attack, but she was left in a coma, and sadly she didn't survive in the end. I don't think she regained consciousness, and I think it only took 5 days after the initial incident before she did unfortunately pass away. Luckily, the ex was actually convicted. He did end up going down for it, but he only got manslaughter, I think. It was voluntary manslaughter, but I don't know the circumstances. I don't know how he didn't get put away for murder. And I'm pretty sure he only spent 3.5 years in jail for that murder. Very sad, and a lot of people do believe it is because she worked on this film. So now we come to the second death, and this was a few years after the first one. They started to plan Poltergeist 2. I think there was 3 in the end in the series. Again, I've not watched them properly, so I'm sorry about that. But in 1986, Poltergeist 2 did actually go to the cinema, and it was played, it was showed, it was a finished movie, and unfortunately, Will Sampson was the next victim of this apparent film curse. I believe he played Shaman Taylor in the film, and he was very concerned about the skeleton move from the first film. He was like, you brought some bad juju in this place, so I'm going to do something about it. So he offered to perform a real life exorcism on the set to try and get rid of this like bad juju, this entity, whatever the hell was going on with this film. So he chose to do it alone at night, so no one else was around. It was just him. Must have been terrifying, but apparently the cast did feel a sense of relief after this exorcism was done. They were kind of grateful that he'd done this. However, after a year of the release of the film, Will ended up with a long-time health condition. He suffered from a bunch of different health problems, which kind of all stemmed from this one degenerative condition that he suffered. I'm probably going to butcher what this is called. I think it's scleroderma, but this is the condition he suffered from, and it basically affected his heart and his lungs, which is never a good thing. So he did undergo a lot of surgery. I think he had both a heart and a lung transplant in the summer of 1987, which are big operations, but unfortunately he did die of post-operative kidney failure on June the 3rd. So yeah, there's another one. Again, it could just be his health, it could just be a weird coincidence, but that is 2 deaths from the same film cast, which is odd. So that brings us to death number 3. There's a lot of deaths. It's so bizarre. But the next one is one of the most famous victims of the Poltergeist curse, I say in air quotations, and this is of one of the main characters, Heather O'Rourke. And she basically played the little girl, you know, the famous little girl who sat in front of that big screen. She's like, that little girl, blonde one, really cute. So she played Carol Ann in all 3 of the films. After Poltergeist 3, this one hit the cinemas in 1988, but before it had hit the cinemas, she unfortunately had already passed away. So 4 months before it was due to hit the cinemas, she did pass away, and she was only 12 years old. So in January of that year, so 1988, she fell very poorly. She got very sick. She appeared to have flu-like symptoms. So she ended up collapsing at home. They rushed her to hospital, and she ended up suffering a cardiac arrest at only 12 years old. But the doctors were actually able to revive her and get her in a stable condition, but unfortunately she was then diagnosed with intestinal stenosis. I think it's intestinal stenosis. It's basically an obstruction in your intestines, but I think she only had a partial one. But either way, that's not good for a little kid to be having. She ended up having surgery, but then went into cardiac arrest again. This poor girl's body was just suffering massively. And this time, unfortunately, the doctors weren't able to revive her. They weren't able to save her, and she did pass away. So she passed away in the February of 1988. Apparently, this was only weeks after she turned 12 as well. And there were reports that she did die of this stenosis and also septic shock. But either way, her body just seemed to be going through way too much. But this is so sad. She was only 12 years old. Then we have death number 4. Yes, we are still going. The actor Lou Perryman was actually the second person who played one of the characters in this series who ended up being a victim of murder. He too was murdered, which is insane. But he played Pugsley in the original first movie, but he ended up suffering his brutal end later on in life. So this was in 1992. He was 67 at this point, but he was brutally attacked. He was hacked to death by someone with an axe. He was chopped to death, which is terrible. So someone called Seth Christopher Tatum was actually a convict, and he was recently released from prison. And he confessed after leaving prison that he was the person who killed him. He said that he killed Lou at his home after he'd come off medication, and he went on a big drinking binge, and yeah, he just killed him. But in the end, he did plead guilty to this, and he was convicted. In 2011, and he was actually sentenced to life in prison, which good. And then we come to death number 5. I'm kind of kidding, but I'm not. It was an almost death. Thank God this person actually survived, but it was an accident and it could have resulted in this person's death. Actor Richard Lawson, and he played one of the parapsychologists in the film. So his character was Ryan, and in 1992 he almost fell victim to this curse and almost died as well. He was involved in a plane crash. The fact that people survive plane crashes is insane to me. It was a US air flight and it was the 405 one. It crashed into New York City's Flushing Bay on the route to Cleveland, Ohio, which is insane. It was a big crash. It was pretty crazy. So unfortunately, 27 people did die. There was 51 passengers on board. So that is a lot of people to survive a plane crash. And Richard Lawson was amongst the survivors of this crash. So he was very, very lucky to escape. However, he switched seats, I believe, last minute, and that seat change saved his life. So if he would have been in his original seat, he wouldn't have survived, which is insane. I wonder what made him switch seats, and I wonder if he switched with someone else, because then obviously that person wouldn't have survived. He got very lucky there, and he got luckier later on in life because he married Beyonce's mum, which that's a good claim to fame. Obviously he's already an actor, but you're marrying Tina Knowles. This was in 2015. You're doing good. You're doing quite good. I wonder if they're still married. But yeah, he nearly died. So many people were just cursed with bad luck after this film. So there is quite a lot more detail to do with the poltergeist curse or whatever, but I am going to move on because, like I said, it's just so easy to get sucked into each one of these. But the next one is actually a Disney film. Not the cliche character Disney film, no, but this film is 3 Men and a Baby. My younger sister was obsessed with this film when we were growing up. There was 3 Men and a Baby, and I think it was 3 Men and a Lady, which was the sequel. But this is a 1987 rom-com kind of film. It's like a family film, kind of. Weirdly enough, I remember this scene so much because I remember watching it and thinking, what the hell was that? And then a few years down the line, someone mentioned this and I thought, no freaking way. In one of the scenes, you can see a very clear image of a young boy standing in the background of one of the scenes. So he's like behind Ted Danson in the scene. He's like behind some sort of sheerish curtain. It's very bizarre. I will tell you that now. However, I'm not sure if this is a legitimate ghost. It is there. You can go and see it. You'll probably be able to find it on YouTube. But there is a clear picture thing of this person that shouldn't have been in this shot. There were plenty of rumours and reports on what this person was or who this person was, and we don't know if it was a publicity stunt to make the film, I don't know, more popular, to get more notice on the film. I don't really know, but either way, there was lots of reports that this person was actually a 9-year-old boy who had unfortunately committed suicide while living in this building. There were some reports that he'd committed suicide by throwing himself out of the window from the upper story. It is quite a tall building. There were plenty of reports that when you see the scene, there's like ruffles in the curtain, and people believe that that was caused by the shape of a rifle that he is holding. I'm pretty sure the scene before, one of the actors is holding a gun of some sort, but either way, there was rumours that he'd actually committed suicide with a shotgun or a rifle, and he was holding that in sort of homage to himself. I don't think that's the right word, but yeah, I don't really know. But it was never edited out. Like I said, you can still see it in the film today. Like I say, if you get a minute, go and check it out. But then there's also the rumours that it's actually just a cardboard cutout that you can see, and it was used in order to make this film very popular so they could get a sequel out of it and all that jazz. But it is very, very strange. So cardboard cutout, ghost boy, you decide. Either way, it is very, very odd. So next we have a very, very popular film, and this is from 1994, and it is The Crow. It is a very popular, can't get my words out, very popular film. However, there was so many accidents and incidents that happened on set of this film. It is unreal. So the filmmakers actually showed up on one of the filming days. I think it was the first filming day, so they showed up on set, and there was a voicemail message. I don't know if they found out who this voicemail message was from, but it basically said that very, very bad things would happen if they made this movie, if they began filming. Usually you just listen to that and think, oh, whatever. But they should have listened. They should have listened because on the first day of filming, so obviously, after they've heard this message, one of the electricians was backing up his cherry picker truck, and he ended up hitting a high tension wire on the power lines that were above him. So he ended up getting electrocuted and even caught on fire. He got rushed to the hospital. I think he had both 2nd and 3rd degree burns. He did survive. He was okay in the end, but he lost both of his ears. He had to have his ears removed. So that was just very unfortunate. You got a fire hitting the power lines. someone being electrocuted, losing his ears, nearly dying, which is insane, all on day one. So they continued filming, and unfortunately Hurricane Emily ended up striking and destroyed so much of the crow's set. They had to rebuild, which again could just be an unfortunate circumstance, but it seems very unlucky, doesn't it? During filming this was, unfortunately, there is a scene in the film, which is a shooting scene, where the actor Brandon Lee walks into a room to find his fiancée had been raped and she'd been beaten up, and a character named Funboy shoots him. But unfortunately, this gun had a live round in it. I think it was a dummy round or something, but either way, a bullet of some sort was lodged in there and they didn't notice it. It wasn't checked. And obviously when this gun was pulled, the trigger was pulled, Brandon Lee was unfortunately shot. He got rushed to hospital and he died. He didn't survive. This was the main actor. They weren't actually going to finish the film, but I'm pretty sure his girlfriend and his mum basically just begged him and said, look, he was so proud of this role, please just go ahead with filming. So they just had to sort of manipulate the film. They had to use a double and try and change his appearance a little bit. They rewrote a lot of the script, so they cut out one of the main characters, which was the skull cowboy, because none of the shots had been filmed yet. So yeah, it's very, very sad. But at least the legacy of the film lives on. He was really proud of this role. But again, like how many bad things have to happen before you think, Jesus, there's something not right there? So moving on to our final film. So this, every time I was researching this film did keep coming up. So I've never heard of this before, but it's called Rosemary's Baby, and it's a 1968 horror film. It came out in June of that year. However, one of the composers, or the guy who scored the actual film, his name was Christoph Kameda. He apparently fell off a cliff and went into a coma, which is very unfortunate. And he never regained consciousness. Apparently, again, I don't know because I've not seen the film, but apparently there's a very similar scene that happened in the film. But either way, that happened, which is very sad. And in the following year, so 1969, this was in April this time, William Castle, who was the film's producer, so he obviously played a huge part and a huge role in getting this film together. He ended up suffering a very, very bad case of kidney stones, and he basically claimed that while he was in hospital, he was hallucinating very, very bad, and he was hallucinating scenes from the film. Luckily, he did actually recover, but he never made any more Hollywood films. I think this was kind of enough to just push him over the edge. Then we come to Roman Polanski. He was the director of this film, and his story is very, very tragic, but he had a wife at the time, and she was pregnant with their child. I believe she was pregnant with a little boy. Her name was Sharon Tate, and you might recognize that name if you are interested in true crime, because Sharon unfortunately was murdered in August of 1969 by the Manson family, which that is a crazy case. It's basically about a cult, if you don't know. Again, feel free to look into it, but you might want to set a week aside because there is so much of that. But the Manson family were basically a cult. A lot of people died. It was very, very sad. So she unfortunately was murdered. I think she was stabbed to death. I could be wrong. Obviously that killed her, and it also killed their unborn son, which is so sad. Then, weirdly enough, at her crime scene, Manson family apparently wrote Helter Skelter on one of the walls in blood. It was misspelled, obviously, but that was the title of one of the Beatles' songs from one of their albums. Is it the White Album? But a few years later, John Lennon obviously was murdered, and his assassination basically took place near the luxury apartments where Rosemary's Baby was filmed, which is a very weird coincidence. Again, probably just is a coincidence, but it is very, very, very weird. And then finally, you've got the author of the novel. So Rosemary's Baby was based on a novel. I think it's Ear 11. Again, I'm sorry if I'm saying so many things wrong, but apparently this person, the writer, was not immune from this curse either. So his wife was pregnant at the time, and she's the one that the plot was kind of based on, but their life basically fell apart. So she divorced him in 1968, so that was your first bit of bad luck. And he had to dodge a shit ton of religious groups for years. The film has like satanic shit in it and religious shit in it, so yeah, he basically had to dodge these people for years. He was getting harassed by them. People hated him for it. He had no choice but to end his career and just go kind of into hiding and live as a recluse, which is very, very sad. Very weird, very bizarre. Imagine finally getting yourself a big break in a Hollywood film to find out it's frigging cursed and you're gonna die. What a weird situation. I'm not laughing because it's funny. I'm just laughing because it is so bizarre. But that is it for today. If you want me to do another episode, I will be more than happy to, because there are so many. You've got like the Conjuring and Annabelle films, the famous ones. You've got The Exorcist. There's so much to this topic. It is unreal, but I thought I would choose some more obscure ones for today. But I just want to say there won't be an episode next week. I've done 10 episodes. I think I need a little break. I love it, don't get me wrong, but it's so intense. So not only are you researching very dark topics all week, you're then talking about it, you're then editing and re-listening to it all. It gets a lot. So I am going to be taking a slight break next week. So I'm sorry about that, but I will be back the week after to restart. If you've got any topics you want me to cover, please let me know. Leave them in the comment section. But I think I need a break. I need a short break. But thank you so much for watching or listening, depending on what you're doing, watching or listening, especially if you've watched or listened to each episode. Thank you so much. If you're watching on YouTube, thank you so much for watching. Please give it a massive thumbs up, leave me a comment down below and subscribe if you are not. And if you are listening on any form of podcast streaming service, thank you so much to you guys as well. Please rate, review and share, do whatever you can to help spread the word. Each of the episodes has all my different links in the description, so if you want to support me in other ways, feel free to head on over there and have a nosy. But that is it. I will see you in a couple of weeks, but I will catch you then. Bye.